What is going on, guys? Lord Valor here, and welcome back to another Lifecast podcast. This is the first one of 2020. Christmas seems like such a long ways away. We're a week from Valentine's Day, so keep that in mind as we're recording this. But joining me today is Kayla, who has a music channel on YouTube now that she does some cool things with. So welcome, Kayla.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, tell people about your YouTube channel and kind of what you're doing there, because I think what you're doing is kind of cool.
Okay, so basically, I'm taking my flute and I'm recording like duets. So it's all me, but then I'm like overlaying everything on top of each other. So that's basically what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. You kind of see those videos online where people sing different parts. She's kind of doing
Yeah.
that same thing, but with flutes, so it's kind of cool.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
All right, well, today's topic, we'll just get right into the main discussion today, is actually going to be the new movie, Rated R. So if you are a younger child, you're not going to understand this, hopefully, because you haven't seen it. But that's beside the point. But, yeah, we're going to be talking about the movie 1917, which is an Oscar-winning movie. Feels really good to say that for some dumb reason. So, yeah, the main storyline of 1917 is... Oh, before we start, just pointing this out, we're going to do spoilers. So if you don't want spoilers, don't listen to this. Just skip ahead. Don't listen. I don't care. Whatever. And second announcement, we're going to be doing a post-show, which is a new thing that I am introducing. So go check. You can go check that out on my Lord Valor channel. I'll be uploading that later, after this podcast is released. So, okay, anyway, back to 1917. 1917 is a war film where two people go on a quest. Is this World War I or World War II, do you know?
I think it's World War One. I think because 1917 is like that area of time. Yeah, it's definitely World War One.
All right, so I'm just going to read a general idea here from Google. So during World War I, two British soldiers of two names of which I don't know, received seemingly impossible orders. In a race against time, they must cross over into enemy territory to deliver a message that could potentially save 16,000 of their fellow comrades, including Blake's own brother, who was a commander we later find out. So the movie, what makes this movie very different is the fact that it looks like it was shot all at once in like a cinematic way. So there was only 6 different cuts, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. There weren't very many. I tried to look when I was watching it, but I couldn't count how many.
And the thing about the cuts is there's only like 1 or 2 major cuts that you could tell, yeah, that's a cut.
Right. Yeah, there was one. They were in like one of the covered wagons or like one of the vehicles or whatever, and they stopped, and then they were like behind the guy, so they had to cut it and then like go in front of him. So that was one I noticed for
Right.
sure.
There was noticeable ones, but for the most part, they weren't noticeable at all. So there's only...
No, they were not.
So that's what made that movie different. To me, I got a little dizzy when the guys were in front of us and you saw their faces and the camera was walking backwards. That kind of that threw you for a loop because you're not used to walking backwards for that long period of time.
No, yeah, I did kind of get dizzy when it turned around or whatever.
And that was the first 20 minutes of the movie with very little change, was just showing them walking backwards with dialogue.
Right. It was either the camera was either in front of them and then it shifted to go behind them and then it went back in front of them, I think.
Right, yeah. The camera, I was glad when it went forward again and it was behind them and walking forward, but that messed with me.
Messed with me too.
So right at the beginning of the movie, it shows two people sleeping, which, I don't know, my first thought was, what the heck is going on? But then you hear the dialogue of the general telling him to pick his best men and go to the general or something.
Yeah.
And then,
the commander or whatever.
yeah, and then they receive orders to deliver a message to another group of army people. What do you call that? A section? A sector? Whatever. Military
Yes.
terms.
Something like that.
They have to cross, what do they call it? The dead zone or the war zone?
The no man's land, right?
Yeah, no man's land. That's what they technically
Isn't
called
no
it.
man's land? Yeah.
So they received commands to pass on a letter to a different commander to stop them from bringing out an attack that they thought was planned out by the Germans or the Russians.
Yes.
Or
The two they're lance corporals, and they were British soldiers trying to stop, it was like Germans were attacking them, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And so basically there is they get across, they pass no man's land. This whole movie is very tense. Like, you're tense almost the whole entire time, which is
Yeah.
except for the very end when the attack was called off. That's when I started to find myself actually relaxed. Anyway.
Yes.
So let's talk about the first jump scare. So they cross no man's land, and they pass all these dead bodies and all these dead horses and the wasteland. But I didn't think they overdid it, right?
No, they didn't. I just don't like gore, so.
Right, but the gore was not overdone. I've seen worse movies with worse gore.
Yeah.
The gore wasn't there to gross you out. It was there because that's what would be there. It fit. It didn't feel like they were overdoing it to try to gross you out.
No.
But so they got to the German
bunker,
trenches.
The fighting grounds or whatever.
Right. Yeah, they got to the other Germans' trenches, and they found out it was all basically destroyed and deserted. And then they found their bunks, which still had stuff in it. And so they're
bed or whatever.
Yeah, so they're searching around these bunks, and apparently there's still food in these sacks that are hanging on top or beside the beds. And the rats are taking that off and eating it.
Yeah.
And so the Germans, being smart people, set up a trap just in case the enemy lines found their hideout, I guess. It's not really a hideout. It's if they went to invade and succeeded. So they set traps, and they noticed it. The two people that went on this journey noticed that there was a trap.
Right.
And the first jump scare is the mouse that chews down the piece of cloth. He chews that and it bangs to the floor. All of a sudden, it just in front of the camera, bang. That's your first jump scare.
Yeah.
And then the second part is that mouse drags. So basically what the trap is I think it's explosives that would...
It's a
tripwire. Yes, that's exactly the words I'm looking for.
Yeah, it was rigged to explosives.
Right. Tripwire that's rigged with explosives. And so they know not to step over it. So they're just noticing it. And then this rat falls down with that sack and starts dragging that sack. And I didn't think the mouse was over it or the rat was over it. But suddenly it's just bang, it explodes. And I jumped. And I think everybody in the theater jumped.
No, yeah, we all did.
Yeah, because I didn't think the rat was across that line yet. It must have been his tail that nipped it.
No, yeah.
Because you were not...
I didn't think it was close enough.
You saw it coming, but you weren't expecting it that soon, right?
No, yeah.
So you thought you were prepared, but then you weren't.
Right, exactly.
So that put... I forget that character's name. one of the characters got buried in rubble. The other guy,
I think his name is Schofield.
Schofield and Blake.
Yes.
Schofield and Blake. So Schofield got buried under all the rocks, and Blake had to dig him up.
I don't know how he got like perfectly buried underneath all of that. Like,
I think he was a little bit closer.
Yeah.
So
but
like
was that,
when the
would that have been one of
Go ahead.
Okay, would that have been like one of the cuts that they did where they had to cut it so they could cover him up, or?
Yeah, I'm assuming there was a cut somewhere in there because remember Blake flew back and banged against the wall hard, and then there was all this dust, and then he's like, "Oh crap, where's Show whatever his name is," and yeah, and so he found him, got him out, and so the way they do their bunks in this is it's underground. So after that explosion, all the supports basically blew up. So it was slowly crumbling, and they had to get out. And they got out, and after they got out, they fired the flare gun. I still don't get why they did that. Do you know why?
Because they said when they were getting the letter, it said that whoever they got the letter from was like, fire up this flare when you know the Germans aren't there or something.
Oh.
So I think that's why, is because the Germans weren't in their bunks anymore. So then he fired it so that the British men that they were fighting with knew.
Okay, but I thought it was because that Schofield guy didn't want to go with Blake anymore. So I thought he was going to stay there and Blake was going to go on his own. But then they went together and I was just a little confused. But
No, I don't think that's what it was. I think it was because the one guy was like, let me know, or fire up a flare. Because he was like, if they're not there, throw the flare gun back because I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of funny, personally.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? If you get shot, before you get shot, just chuck it back to me if you would. Thanks. Like,
Exactly.
I chuckled, and Luke was next to me. He's like, dude, do you think that's funny? I'm like, that was supposed to be funny. Anyway, so...
It registered to me when I was watching it, but...
Yeah, I thought that was kind of humorous. Alright, so anyway, they continue on, and the camera kind of does this weird circling around them while they're talking kind of thing, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, it like disoriented me. I was like, what?
Really?
What is happening?
I thought that was really cool.
Cool. Go ahead, sorry.
The only thing that really disoriented me was the walking backwards thing. That's just like riding backwards on a bus, on those buses in the cities. Like, some people get sick if they're not facing forward and they're facing backwards when the thing's going forward. So it's kind of like that.
That didn't bother me. That didn't really bother me at all.
Yeah, that's the only part that got me. But all right, anyway, the camera did a little circle thing, and then they find this deserted
It was
or
like
taken
ammunition,
over.
right?
Well, it was like a deserted house, and then it looked like the Germans or whatever had kicked whoever out. They'd cut down all the cherry trees.
Yeah.
And then Blake was talking about how the cherry trees were gonna multiply or grow up, and there's gonna be twice as many cherry trees now because they got cut down in like 50 years.
Yes.
And this is where in my personal opinion, this scene is where a scene. What do you call a scene in this movie? Because it's all one shot.
The part.
This is the part of the movie where I was actually shocked. Like, I didn't expect, spoiler, Blake to die. If I thought anybody was gonna die, I thought it was gonna be that Schofield dude, because Blake had something to get there for his brother, right? So the last thing you expected to happen was Blake to die.
I did not. That was the one. That was like, okay, other than like the dead bodies, that was like the one like huge part of the movie that I did not enjoy watching.
Well, and the way he died too wasn't even throughout that entire beginning sequence, there was 3 planes shooting at each other in the distance.
Yeah.
And then finally during that scene when they got there, Schofield was filling his
canteen with
milk, and the planes shot each other, and it was two of the British versus one of the German, and
Yeah.
one German plane was shot down, and
Yeah.
which somehow landed directly where these two were. Kind of
Yeah,
odd.
no, because they were like, so it was the abandoned house and then like an abandoned like barn kind of structure, and
Right.
they were in there like getting like they were refilling their canteens, and then the plane comes when they were in there, I think.
Right, but this is the only part of the movie that was kind of like, really, you kind of stretching that for me. Was the plane had so many places, like, I know he was going down, but like there was so much open area out there that he could have landed, that he chose to land towards a wooden barn.
Okay, true, and also it was like I don't know if you remember this, but he kind of went down and then he went above the hill again.
And that was supposed to like make you jump, like, because he went down, you expect him to just continue going down, but somehow from
Yeah.
when he went down behind the hill that the camera couldn't see him, he turned and then went boom up the hill, and you're kind of like, oh crap, that plane's coming right towards him. And then
Yeah.
another thing that gets me is, if there's a plane coming at you, you should be running to the side, not trying to run away from it.
Wait, why not run away from it?
You run to the side, so like, the way he was running is the plane was coming at him, and he started running in front of the plane, where he would still get hit with the plane.
Okay, true, but I think he knew that the structure or whatever would stop the plane, maybe?
It still makes more sense to me to just sprint off to the side and let the plane kind of whatever. I don't know anything. Instincts are a different thing too. Like, we don't know what he would have actually done if this happened in real life. So maybe it was realistic. I don't know. That's just my nitpicky self coming out.
So nitpicky.
Anyway, so it's a German plane, and the plane's on fire. So Blake saves this guy, takes him out. It's a German person, and this kills me. Like, it was kind of like, why did you have to have such a big heart? Just shoot him. He's a German, you know? But yeah. So
Or let him burn to death. There's that too.
right, and just let him burn to death, slow in agony. I'd just kill him, shoot him in the head, get it over with quickly for him. Anyway, so they save him. He's lying on the ground, and Schofield goes and fills his helmet with water so this guy can take a drink. And when that happens, the German officer stabs the other Blake, and Blake basically bleeds to death.
Yeah, like,
Which
it's
caught me off
focused
guard.
on like after they pulled him out, it focused on Schofield, so then you didn't see it coming, and then like they turned it as he was getting stabbed.
Yeah, and then Schofield was pretty quick on his hand, grabbed his gun, and shot that guy pretty quickly.
Yeah, didn't he want to do that originally?
Yes, originally Schofield's just like, dude, let's shoot him, let's kill him, he's the enemy, don't help him. But Blake had too big of a heart.
Yeah,
Who can blame him?
and that, sometimes that can be the biggest downfall.
Yep, and that's where Blake died. He bled to death. And so Schofield starts dragging his body, and then there's a bunch of soldiers that went by, and as Schofield's like, I wouldn't say crying, he's kind of like sitting there just like, I can't believe he's dead kind of thing.
Yeah.
Their general comes up to him and is like, hey, you need a ride. So he hitches a ride, and I guess the next big scene is really the town, right?
Yeah, they stop. So he travels with them, and then it ends up they were gonna cross a bridge, but the bridge was broken.
Yep.
So then he gets off and was like, "I'll just get off and just keep going." So then he goes into the town, and then as he's trying to cross like the broken bridge, then people start shooting at him, or somebody starts shooting at him.
I think the town scene was just overall one of the most tense things. Even when he was down there with that woman, I still felt tense and like something bad's gonna happen. Something bad's gonna happen. It never came.
Like...
They did funky things with the camera. We'll get there. So we'll get there. I have a big opinion on the way they shot that. That was very clever in my opinion. Anyway, so he starts crossing this broken bridge and he keeps getting shot at. And he figures out where the shots are coming from, which I don't know how he figured that out. But he figured it out.
You can kind of figure out where shots are coming from if you just, A, listen, and 2, look where they're coming from.
I thought they were coming from... I don't know how to explain. I thought they were coming from the opposite direction that they were originally coming from. But that might have been because there were several people shooting at him, not just one. I thought it was just one. Maybe it was several.
True, and then I think after Schofield started firing, I think that's when the other people stopped. But then the one guy kept shooting. I think.
So he eventually goes up into a building, and like there's this really tense scene where he opens it's daytime. Would you say that? It's still daytime.
Yeah, it was daytime at that point.
He opens the door. He shoots. They both shoot. The guy that was in the window shooting at him originally. They both shoot, and what happens? He falls down. The chauffeur falls down the stairs, and then there's pitch black. Yeah, Schofield. Sorry. He falls down the stairs, and it's pitch black, and then like there's a black screen, and then it suddenly fades in on him. He's like waking up. And I was at first kind of confused as to what happened there.
Yeah, I was as well. Like I was like,
but
where did he go?
I came to the conclusion that he shot him. They both shot at the exact same time, and either the other guy's bullets hit him in the head, or he just fell back because he didn't want to get shot after he shot, and so falling down the stairs knocked him out. So he didn't have any bullet wounds.
I think what happened was, I think Schofield fired a little bit before the other guy. And then the other guy, because Schofield shot first, the other guy, he missed his target, so it, later on in the movie, the lady puts, a cloth on his...
Yeah. You know what, I think, that makes sense. So it just grazed him enough for him to fall back, and then he tumbled down the stairs and kind of got knocked out.
Right, because it must have hit him hard enough where he started bleeding a lot because he kind of got knocked out.
Yeah, he was out for a while. It seemed like it was midnight at the time of that he woke up. So he wakes up, and then there's this tense scene. This whole city is on fire, basically. And he has to walk through this town of German officers who are just in there for some reason. And there's people shooting at him. He eventually gets into this little crevice where he meets the lady. And I really like how they did this scene. Because, she's cowering kind of in the shadows. And then you see her and you're kind of like, okay, she's not a threat. But then throughout that whole scene, they're circling him the entire way. So, you're looking in the background. You're like, is there people hiding there waiting to shoot him? Oh, it's dark there. Is there somebody there? And it kind of tripped you. You're like everything's relaxed. But you just still are tense because you think there's a lot of shadows. It's dark. They're doing this weird thing with the camera where you can see a lot of the background, might I add. And you're just, and it's just spinning. And you're like, oh. So that was a really well done scene, even though it was supposed. I don't know if they were supposed to. It was supposed to be a calm scene, but the way they did it was not calm to me. I was intense the entire time. So this lady, the people behind me were like, "Oh, they're gonna kiss." I'm like, "No, that doesn't. That literally would be out of the blue and would not make sense."
It wouldn't make sense, even though me as a romantic kind of hoped it would happen.
Yeah, no, I didn't want it to happen. That would have ruined that scene for me. It would have just been like, that's disgusting. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, so he leaves that place, her and her child. He kind of leaves her. He leaves her with the milk that he got from that... From
where Blake got killed.
Yep, from where Blake got killed. He left the milk with her and a lot of his food. Which I thought was kind of...
I think he just dumped it all out and was like, here, take it.
Yeah, it was kind of... I don't know, it was an interesting choice. So, then there was that tense scene where he's running through, he's getting shot at,
Yeah, well, okay, the way it started off, I think was stupid on his part, but very clever in how they, filmed it. Because he walks, he comes out, and then he walks into, this...
open area.
An open area, building, and then he sees this guy, and they see each other at the same time. He realizes it's a German, so he like covers the guy's mouth and was like, "Don't say a word." Uncovers the mouth, which is stupid.
You should have knocked him out in the first place. Yeah.
The guy shouts out, and that's when all the shooting starts.
Yep. And then basically he gets flanked. He's like, "Well, crap, I don't have a gun anymore. I don't know how he lost his gun, or if he ran out of bullets, or
Yeah.
I don't know. He wasn't able to do that. So to escape that, he jumped into a river basically, and floated down this river. In which I think was the most gruesome part was when he was done with the river. All those bodies that were bloated on the side needed to crawl over.
I did not watch it. I did not watch that part.
That was, I think, even though it wasn't bloody gory, it was kind of like, oh, that's just disgusting. Like, it's realistic. They didn't overdo it. But those bloated human beings got like a solid 15-20 seconds on film, and you're kind of like, oh.
Yeah, so like I had the girl next to me, like I covered my eyes, and she's like, "I'll tell you when it's over."
Yeah, and then the fact that you had to climb over those bodies to get to land was just that's what got me. It's just like, I can see them and that's fine, but you gotta touch them, and yeah.
I wonder how they actually did that. How they actually did that with the people.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was edited in and they were just like rag dolls and then like CG'd in. I don't know. I wonder how they do dead bodies in a lot of shows. That just makes me
even when Blake died, like how they got how his face turned like blue and cold, like
there was that little element too that was really well done.
Yeah. Even though it was really sad at that point, like I thought that was really cool how they did that.
Yeah. And yeah, that was the most unexpected part of the film to me.
Right.
So after that happened,
he climbs over the bodies
and he kind of just sits there, and he's like, well, I'm alive, but I kind of don't want to be at the same time. Like his acting at that point was really, really well done, because he was like tired, just kind of wanted to stop, and then you hear this just singing in the background, and then he kind of goes towards it, and it's a bunch of soldiers, British soldiers, mind you, so he knows they're not German soldiers, so he can approach them, and I thought it was weird that nobody looked at him or saw him, and nobody reacted when they saw him. They're just kind of like, oh, a straggler, no gun, okay, cool. And then,
so maybe that was why, is maybe they looked at him and they're like, oh, he's harmless because he doesn't have any weapons, and then they just, or they saw like his uniform or something.
But I think the first time they saw him was when that little singing cool thing after they weaved through the people and the singing, and the first time I think people saw him was when they turned around to talk to him.
The people that he sat behind, I don't think saw him until then.
Right, and they were kind of like nonchalantly like, oh, hey, there's somebody behind us that I've never seen before. It was just so nonchalant that I was kind of like, you think they'd be like, oh crap, who are you, kind of thing, and then realize.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I don't know. That just didn't seem like it was. They just didn't. I don't think the reaction was appropriate, I guess.
Yeah, or like it could have been a little bit more legit, like.
Unless they saw him and before walking up and they noticed he was harmless, but I didn't see that cue anywhere.
I didn't either. I thought when I was watching it, I thought they were all like watching the guy that was singing.
Yeah, I didn't see a single person look to the side and be like, "Oh, hey, straggler approaching," kind of thing, and then just kind of like, you know. The first time I think people saw him was when the song was over and the general's like, "Hey, move out." And they're kind of like, oh, who are you? What do you have to do? And they're like, I have to deliver a message to this general. And so if he figures out that the group of people that he just was sitting with is the second wave, I'm going to call it, of soldiers that were going to be part of an attack on the Germans.
Yes, yes.
So,
and then he finds out from that, like, he had said something about, like, the battalion he needed to be at, and they were like, oh, yeah, this is the battalion, and then he starts, like, okay, wait, I need to find this person. Where can I find him? And that kind of thing.
Yep. And so he's going through their, what do you call it?
They're like trenches?
Trenches, thank you. He's going through the trenches like, hey, do you know this general, what's the general he's looking for?
I don't remember. That's kind of sad. I don't remember the guy's name.
I know the actor is Benedict Cumberbatch, sorry, jeez. He looks like Cucumber, like Benedict Cucumber, kind of. But Benedict Cumberbatch also plays Doctor Strange. So when he the general first turned around, I was kind of like, oh crap, that's Doctor Strange. So see, I couldn't get that out of my head.
That, so wouldn't know.
Yeah, but that's what I couldn't get out of my head. So eventually he does find the general, and gets him the note. The general doesn't really want to call off the attack, which I think that's kind of understandable.
Well, okay, when he finally finds the general is like, "Who are you? What the heck are you doing?" And then he was like, "I have a letter from my general or whatever," and then like whoever he was supposed to get the letter to didn't want it at first.
Mackenzie, General Mackenzie, or Colonel Mackenzie.
Thank you. Yes. And then finally, Mackenzie was like, "All right, fine, I'll look at the letter." So then he looks at the letter, and then he calls off the attack, right?
Yes, he didn't want to, but
because he thought it was gonna be like, "Oh, we're gonna win this for sure," and that's what everybody thought. But then
it never actually told us if it was a German plan for them to attack at that point. They never really told us, but I don't think that's what was important. It was.
Well, I feel like they told us like right at the beginning of the movie when they first got the letter.
Right.
Was that
they
did.
Yeah, they did tell you, but they never actually officially like told you if it was like, and I don't know how you do that in the context of like.
Right,
what do you want a German officer to say? Oh yeah, that was a planned attack and they didn't fall for it. That wouldn't have fit. So the movie ends with what's his name? Schofield, yes. So the movie ends. I'm really bad with names, so I base all my movie knowledge off of people's faces. Anyway, so the movie ends with Schofield finding Blake's brother, telling him he died, giving him his ring, his dog tag, and stuff like that. So, and that's kind of where the movie ends, is where he's leaning against a tree and he's kind of like thinking about.
It kind of ended abruptly, in my opinion.
I feel like it was abrupt as well, but I felt like it fit. It didn't. You felt like, oh, that's the end. You were kind of surprised that it was the end, and you're like, oh yeah, well, it has been like 2.5 hours,
Exactly. That's true.
So, overall, the film was really well done, with a few points where I was kind of like, oh, okay, but overall, it wasn't too gruesome for me. It wasn't like overdone in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I thought it was really well done and deserving of what Oscar did it win?
It won 3 Oscars actually. Yeah. It won Best Cinematography, Best Sound.
Yep.
Best Sound Mixing, and Best Visual Effects, and it was nominated for 7 other ones on top of that. So it was nominated for 10 and won 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely, it definitely deserved cinematography for sure.
Yeah.
Who else was visual effects? Another thing I wanted to point out. 1917
Well, you know who gave the best visual effects to it?
I think
James Corden and Rebel Wilson in their Cats costumes.
Yeah, that was during the Oscars. That was pretty funny. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah, I think Endgame was up for best visual effects as well, right?
Yes, I think Endgame was, and I think Star Wars might have been.
Yeah.
Maybe? If I'm remembering.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Um, what one was that? Best visual effects. Best visual effects nominees. Yeah, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Avengers Endgame, 1917, The Lion King, like the live one, and The Irishman.
Yeah, we can get into Disney later, but I have a lot of opinions on that.
You have some opinions on that.
A lot of opinions on that. We might get that into the post show because we're going to be talking a lot about Disney stuff.
I mean, we should.
We definitely will. So, what are your overall... Give us your overall thoughts on 1917.
I thought it was a very well done movie, and the actors, they're very well cast. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
The way they did the shot and how it was like almost all one continuous shot was unlike any movie I've ever seen, and it was the coolest thing. And I've only seen, I think that was my second R-rated movie in my life. The first one was Shawshank Redemption.
I can still... Oh, no, you weren't in that class. I can count on one finger how many R-rated movies I've seen.
You mean on one hand?
On one hand, yeah. Not one finger. One hand.
Yeah, it was very good and very well done. And honestly, I think other than the language content,
I didn't...
There wasn't a lot of swearing.
I was gonna say I didn't feel like it overdid swearing at all.
No, but
the dialogue was minimal though too. Remember, there wasn't very much dialogue when they're... I don't know. I felt like there was a lot of just empty space, kind of like nature noises and stuff too.
Right, yeah. The majority of the swearing, I think, came at, like, the beginning of the movie when they were when they were with all of their,
Yep.
whatever. But honestly, I think it could have been rated PG-13.
I do too. I feel like the rated R was kind of overdone.
Right. I think it is pressing the line of PG-13, I think, but
they should
honestly,
They should create something in between PG-13 and R.
Yes,
like,
they should.
PG-18 or something. Like, there's a big difference between PG-13 and PG-18. Like, if they created something like that.
Right, like, creating, yeah. Because then there's those movies where it's like, they're not quite, they shouldn't be rated R, but they're pushing the line of PG-13.
Yep, so, like, a PG-18 would have been, that's what I would have called it. It's like a PG-18.
Or, like, PG-17.
Or something, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to point out was the fact that it was shot in one. I know you mentioned that that's a part that you liked, but I heard someone say on a podcast I listened to, who is an actor and does like a lot of plays, they're like, that's what a play is all one shot. But to counter her argument that it shouldn't be that cool that they're doing that, I'm gonna argue that it should be cool that they're doing that, because who does that in movies?
Right.
Like, doing a one-shot in movies, sure, that's how plays are done, but you're talking about a movie made for a film, and just the way that had to go about, they had to find different places to shoot, the camera had to, you know?
I know we watched, like, in Comm 2, we watched Lars and the Real Girl, and some of those shots were so long and so awkward.
Right. So that's a different type of film where it's like you're switching shots, like you go to this scene, this scene, this scene, this scene.
Right.
So what makes 1970 different is it was filmed in one shot, and that isn't normal for a movie to do, like to have that kind of feel, aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what my opinion on that little issue.
Yeah. Hang on. I'm trying to see if I can find how many shots there are. It says there's one obvious one, and that was in. There's one in the abandoned building with the German sniper. Okay, well that gave me nothing. There's 34?
That's what I found too. All 34 hidden cuts we spotted.
I think we're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, Screen Rant.
Yes.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Anyway, so if there was cuts, it was not very noticeable at all.
No.
And they did a very good job of discreting that. So, yeah, overall 1917 was a really, really well done film. Go see it if you are over 18, obviously. Don't if you're 17 or you.
17.
I know, but we made a special case for you got in at 70. I don't know. Can you get how old do you have to be?
R-rated movie age. You can be 17. An R rating on a movie means children under the age of 17 can get in only with a parent or guardian who is over the age of 21.
Yeah. Which is, yep. So, definitely don't show this to younger audiences. I think even, 16 is pushing the limit of this.
Yeah, I would say, senior in high school, and then...
Yeah, even though it didn't really gross me out at a lot of times, it was a very intense movie in a very adult-like situations. That's why probably I'd tell you not to show it to a 13-year-old.
Yeah, the content of grossness and the gore and all of that, there wasn't a lot, but what you said, the intense and the violence, the shooting and all that makes you I was shaking the whole time while I was watching. I was nervous.
It had you intense a lot of the time.
Yes.
Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of Lifecast. Thank you for listening. You can find us on YouTube by searching the Saucy Meme Lords, and you will be able to subscribe to us there if you look in the links of in the links of any video we do. You can be able to find the links to our personal channels. Make sure you check out my channel, though, which is Lord Valor. And you can listen to the post show, which we are going to be talking about a lot about Disney, specifically Frozen 2, which was a very highly rated film, and I think won a few Oscars as well. No, that was Toy Story 4 won an Oscar for something. But we're also going to be talking about those two movies and just Disney in general, so make sure you check that out, because Kayla is a Disney fanatic.
You're right.
Links to our social media are also in the description of every video, and we post there occasionally, not very much. Kayla, where can people find you and all the things you do online?
Well, I am on Instagram, Snapchat, and if you want to know what those are, you can just email me, kjvzandy@gmail.com. And my YouTube channel is Kayla Vandazan. Just search that up in the search box. And I think that's it.
This has been a new episode of Lifecast. When life gives you lemons, shoot a movie with no cuts.